Hey, 3, 2, 1. Good day, everybody. My voice is gonna be a little deeper tonight. Just getting over a cold or some sort of coughing fit. No, I don't have that thing. I'm pretty sure. I don't think it's that. Better not be that. You know what I mean. And I'm not talking about Mexican drinks. It is Friday, though. So, oops, I should have clicked that. That's actually exactly what I wanted. Thank you, phone. Mexican drinks. Oh, I hear me. It is Friday, though. So, oops, I should have clicked. All right. Shut up, me. Shut up, me. Shut up. All right, just shut up. Let me know if you can hear me fine, because I've got to be able to speak up tonight. I don't know whether or not it says it's best with headphones, so I think that this might be narrated. From what I can tell from the videos, which would be good because my throat could use a rest. It's basically a sort of choose your. There it is. Okay. Shut up, me. Hey, Ganovo. Listening to me, my smartphone. Yay, I can hear me. Okay. So it looks like this is not like the game that we played before, which was a platformer. Um, Interestingly enough. Oh, that's interesting. Ha! That's actually kind of cool. So I'm looking at you on my guys on my smartphone because this thing takes up my entire real estate of my one screen because I'm a cheapskate. I mean, I'm a frugal rugal. I mean, I'm a frugal roo. Um, so I have one screen, and this thing takes up the entire real estate of it. From what I can tell, um, this is going to be text like a text-based adventure with illustrations. At least that's the sense I get from the video preview. So it's not going to be like the third person or what they call it. 3D adventure platformer style game with emphasis on exploration, like the Scout game was. Which, given the technical issues that game sort of did, have, I'm just wearing my dinner now. Hold on a second. I'm gonna pause for a second. I gotta grab a napkin. Oh my. Mm. Oh. Okay. Hold on. This is not going starting well. Hold on a second. I'm looking off my pant leg. Oh man. Anyway. So, anyways, yeah, it's going to be a text-based adventure game, sort of like Police Quest without the actual pixelated sprite work. All right, so my name's Tantru. How are you?
Strike me rudder, matey. Welcome to the Lost Legends of Escape the Gloomer, a conversational adventure game in 9 chapters by Scott Adams and the Clopas team, a parallel tale to the Mossflower story, in association with Soma Games, Penguin Random House, and Redwall Limited Company. The automatic hint feature is active. To have a more challenging experience, enter automatic hint to adjust the feature at any time. Prologue. His muscle and sinew lay wasted under the tawny fur that covered his big, tired body. The face was that of a wildcat who had survived many battles. The pointed ears stood above a tracery of old scars that ran from crown to whiskers. He had fearsome yellow teeth, and the green barbarian eyes still alight with strange fires. His paws beat heavily against the stone as he descended. His withered paws opened the chest he had brought down with him. He pulled the pouch from its robe, placed it inside, and raised the heavy chain from his neck. He held the amulet to his brow, fondly admiring it for several moments before he laid it next to the pouch and closed the chest. Beneath the grub, beneath the cells, present where insanity dwells.
We must take the fourth ring to the fires of Mordor. I know, right? Well, I think that this is its strength, honestly. So, like, I think storytelling is the strength of the Redwall series. So, I think that moving to this kind of format might be for the better. We're gonna see. Ooh, it's my amulet. Is that like in the inventory? Ooh. Hey, cool. New laptops. I should get a new computer, especially since I saw. Which would be interesting. Anyway, let's start chapter 1. Meet Gilling.
Chapter 1. Meet Gillig.
Man, this is like an audiobook, man. I might have to read this myself just to
Gillig the
speed it
otter
up.
was armed with his trusty sling, which was a long-distance weapon favoured by otters. He tightly anchored his rope to a huge ballista boulder and descended down the cliff side into the entrance of the abandoned otter halt called Otter's Den. He set about his first task, to find a way into Cotir Castle. Skipper's words of advice echoed through his mind. You'll find the secret entrance all right, matey. You just need to look. What will Gillig do? This is what you must now decide. Try exploring and doing things with what you discover around you, and check your belongings to see what you have. Use full sentences starting with an action verb like enter, examine, take, feel, etc. You can ask for a hint or a summary at any time. You can't lose in this game, so feel free to experiment and have fun.
You can't lose. What fun is that? Spoilers, man. Hey, Chucks. All right, so what does Gillig do? So it says you'll have to find the secret entrance. Look for secret entrance. Actually, let's look at the cliff. Because I have ADD.
There was not a single creature that could climb the smooth rock that surrounded the cliff top. The height could only be surmounted with wings. However, Gillig had left the sturdy rope still tied to the boulder atop.
Okay.
Congratulations! You have unlocked your first achievement.
Ah!
They are just special little things in the game for players to find or do. They're just for fun, and are not needed to complete the game.
Well, I am aware of what an achievement is, game. Thank you.
A badger lord appeared in Gillig's thoughts, his soft voice like the whisper of an owl's wing beat in the night sky, proclaiming that you have earned the achievement title of Base Jumper Wannabe. Gillig was in the entrance chamber of the halt. He pondered what else might he discover by looking around and then closely examining things he found.
um, explore the halt, I guess.
The young otter narrowed his eyes and peered into the collapsing halt. The sunlight pierced only a short distance into the halt. All else was swallowed by the darkness. Gillig, taking a quick glance around the room, noticed there wasn't much to look at except for a pile of rubble within only a few paws' length of him. Long ago, moles had carved the den from the living rock, which later had become a happy home to a crew of otters. However, the den had been given over to the ruins of time when the river moss changed its course, leaving the entrance on a high and dry cliff face.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys some options because I want to have some fun with this. I think so. The thing is, like, it's trying to make me use this pile of rubble. So we can either say examine the pile of rubble, kick the pile of rubble, or um, enter the darkness. I'll give you those three options: enter the darkness, kick the stones, or examine the stones. I want to see how much I can break this game. I'm a creative person. Whoops. Yep, I got it. I know how the game works. Don't berate me, game. All right, I'm doing good. How are you doing, Tony? And Two Chooks, how are you doing? So, Kay, if you didn't hear my options, Ganovo, so we're gonna do one of three things. I'm gonna make one of three sentences up. We're going to examine the stones, kick them rocks, okay, or enter the darkness. Those are the three options. I don't want to leave it too open ended because I know like people can come up with infinite number of things and you could get your brain stuck on things, but I'll like okay, I can come up with like a few options. And see how we can we have kick the rocks. Kick the rocks going once. Kick the rocks going twice. I'm not gonna spend too long. Kick the pile of rubble.
He went to hit something, but realized it would not do anything interesting. Gillig was in the entrance chamber of the halt.
Alright. I'm gonna do enter the darkness.
Gillig wanted to enter some place, but he did not know where he needed to go. Gillig was in the entrance chamber of the halt.
Oh, this is boring. Come on.
The young otter narrowed his eyes and peered into the collapsing halt. The sunlight pierced only a short distance into the halt. All else was swallowed by the
See, now they're
darkness.
leading me, okay?
Gillig,
Yes, I
taking a
know.
quick glance around the room, noticed there wasn't much to look at except for a pile of rubble within only a few paws' length of him. Long ago,
What did it
moles
say?
had carved the den from the living rock,
You
which
can
later
press
had
the up
become
arrow
a
or view
happy
previous
home to a
commands
crew of
or.
otters.
It's so embarrassing.
However,
I have
the
no
den had
idea
been given over
what
to
you
the
mean by
ruins
that
of
word.
time when the river
It doesn't
moss
know the word
changed its
or?
course,
What about
leaving the
and?
entrance on a
Oh,
high
it knows
and
and.
dry cliff face. Gillig eyed the rubble on the ground and thought that
Anyways.
it might require closer examination. Gillig stepped into the halt carefully, letting his eyes adjust to the darkness. He scanned the rubble, which was filled with wood, rocks, and even a skull of some unknown beast. His eyes stared fixedly at a peculiar piece of wood. It was long and wrapped at one end. Gillig thought it looked like an ancient wooden torch that was worth taking. Gillig was in the entrance chamber of the halt.
This is called leading. Scan the road as a skull of an unknown beast. Take the skull.
He went to grab the decayed skull, but then thought it better to leave it be. Gillig had left his own torch back at Camp Willow. However, he was grateful there happened to be one here, just waiting for him to pick it up.
Stop
Gillig was
leading
in
the
the entrance
witness.
chamber of the halt.
I know what I was supposed to do. Don't berate me. I'm just gonna do this all the time. I'm gonna say the wrong thing and then see like I'm that sassy of a person. Pick up torch. Yeah, sure.
Gillig grabbed the torch's handle and gave a quick, powerful tug. The otter collapsed backward, hands, still clutching the ancient torch, as a cloud of dust burst into the air from the collapsing rubble pile. Gillig climbed back to his feet and waved the dancing cloud of dust from his face. Everything around him was bright and fuzzy, his
Well,
eyes
that's
fixed on
because
the
he's
swirls
there.
of air
Aw.
parading in the breeze. Time stood still as he dreamily smiled at the memory of the day before, surrounded by the joyous feasting of woodlanders in Brock Hall. Martin the warrior, accompanied by Gonf, the prince of mouse thieves, Skipper, the leader of the otters, and other woodlanders were billeted at Brock Hall, where meal times were like a constant feast. The woodlanders
Oh my
began
God.
passing
This is gonna be a
food.
while.
As Skipper ate, Martin told him
This is
of
a great time for a
Gingerveer.
flashback.
The wildcat was kindly disposed towards the woodlanders, and locked away in the cells deep beneath Cotir by his wicked sister, Queen Sarmina. During his recent captivity in the dungeons, Martin recalled Weasel Guard's chatter of the late Lord Verduga's scroll of inheritance, which had vanished upon his death. The scroll, the guard suspected, would have named Gingerveer the rightful heir, and not Sarmina. Martin cleaned the October ale from his whiskers.
Cotir is not easily infiltrated. But if there's a chance that scroll exists, we must have it.
Skipper raised an eyebrow as he quickly gulped the rest of his famous hot root punch. Strike me colours, and I've got just the otter for the job. Gillig shook himself free of his thoughts of the past. The swirling dust cloud had finally cleared. Sunlight overflowed into the room, revealing more of the halt. He looked around now with torch in paw. If he could just find a way to light it.
So he was in the room and they had that weird exposition. I don't know about all that. I mean, there's a medias res and there's like, hey, this is why I'm here. I mean, you could have just explained why he was there without the flashback. I'm just saying. That would be just me, though. I'm going to be sardonic.
Congratulations, you are making progress in creating your story. Notice the paw print's progress bar light up. The sound you hear next will play at each new accomplishment.
Oh, is that what that is? Gilligan shook himself free of the past. The swirling dust cloud had finally cleared. Sunlight overflowed into the room, revealing more of the hold. He looked around now with torch and paw. If only he could find a way to light it. How do you light a torch without things? Flint? Look at torch, maybe?
The ancient torch had been lit many times, and was almost at the end of its life, but it seemed the torch could still be lit one last time.
Of course,
Gillig
that's
was in the
convenient.
entrance chamber of the halt.
Examine the halt. H-O-L-T.
Gillig was in the entrance chamber of an ancient ruined otter halt. From where he stood, the den looked completely abandoned and desolate. The den was lit by rays of bright sunlight that streamed in from the open entrance, thus causing the stirred-up dust motes to glow like strange fireflies. Hanging just outside the entrance and within reach was the end of the rope he had used to climb down into the decaying otter's den. There was a tall, unstable-looking pillar of rubble
Oh, I know what I
running up
gotta
to the
do.
rocky ceiling. Visible was a number of rubble-packed doorways which were impassable without the help of a mole. Yet there was one doorway which hadn't collapsed. It led into a dark, foreboding tunnel. Long ago, moles had carved the den from the living rock, which later had become a happy home to a crew of otters. However, the den had been given over to the ruins of time when the river moss changed its course, leaving the entrance on a high and dry cliff face. Gillig thought about what he could discover if he paused to look around.
All right. Well, take rope.
Gillig reached for the rope hanging outside the halt entrance. His better judgment told him that it would be best for it to remain there, so he could leave after he was done with his mission. Gillig was in the entrance chamber of the halt.
Rub torch against rope.
He went to rub something, but realized he was not able at the present moment. Gillig thought about what he could discover if he paused to look around.
Fine. Look around.
Gillig was in the entrance chamber of an ancient, ruined otter halt.
Yes, we know where we
From
are.
where he
Thank you.
stood, the den looked completely abandoned and desolate. The den was lit by rays of bright sunlight that streamed in from
And
the
we
open
did that, right?
entrance, thus causing the stirred-up dust motes to glow like strange fireflies. Hanging just outside the entrance and within reach was the end of the rope he had used to climb down into the decaying otter's den. There was a tall, unstable-looking pillar of rubble going up to the rocky ceiling. Visible was a number of rubble-packed doorways which were
Climb
impassable without the help
the
of a mob.
pillar.
Yet there was one. The pillar of rubble appeared very unstable. Gillig had no desire to tamper with it. Gillig was in the entrance chamber
Examine
of
the
the halt.
frickin' the pillar.
He wanted to look at something, but it was either not visible to him, or he could not find anything about it.
Look
Gillig was
at
in the entrance chamber of the halt.
rubble pillar. Yeah, well.
He wanted to look at something, but it was either not visible to him, or he could not find anything about it. Having explored everything in the entrance, Gillig looked with dread at the dark tunnel.
So that one's
The
kind of
young
silly. It's
otter
like if you
knew
looked
he would have to
around, it's
earn the
like, oh
right to
no, he
continue
looked at
his
everything.
search.
No.
Gillig was in the entrance chamber of the halt.
Fine. Enter the dark tunnel.
With confidence on his shoulders, Gillig walked into the dark tunnel. A sense of foreboding hung over him as he stepped through its many twists and turns.
Yeah, they have
until he
games
could
like
no
that,
longer
yeah.
see
And there
where
was
he was
also
going.
Police
Everything
Quest, which
was
had that
pitch black
symbology just
ahead,
automatically for you.
but Gillig felt certain he could leave the tunnel.
Alright, Kava as I walked into the dark tunnel, for building everything's pitch black. Leave tunnel.
As Gillig stumbled about in the darkness, he felt something with his rudder-like tail on the dark floor. Gillig carefully made his way back out of the tunnel to the brightly lit entrance of the halt. Gillig was in the entrance chamber of the halt.
Look at my tail.
He ran his paws over his magnificent rudder-like tail. The otter's rudder was hefty like many otters in the crew, and filled him with pride. Gillig felt the clutches of anxiety return to him as he thought about the dark tunnel. Perhaps the thing he had bumped into within the darkness could be of use. Gillig was in the entrance chamber of the halt.
So if we had a drinking game of every time he goes, Gillig was in the entrance chamber to the halt, I think people would be passed out by now. Anyways, let's enter. Let's gather item in the dark. Something prevents that from happening.
Gillig was in the entrance chamber of the halt.
Okay. Grab item in tunnel. Something prevents that from happening.
Gillig felt the clutches of anxiety return to him as he thought about the
Enter
dark tunnel. Perhaps the thing he had bumped into. With confidence on his shoulders, Gillig walked into the dark tunnel. A sense of foreboding hung over him as he stepped through its many twists and turns until he could no longer see where he was going.
Search for
Everything was
item.
pitch black ahead. But Gillig felt he strained to see, but the darkness was absolute. It was too dark to see anything at all, not even his paws in front of his nose. The darkness surrounded Gillig. He remembered his friend, Clerum, the blind hedgehog, and wondered if this is how he must feel.
Feel the ground.
Through sense of touch, Gillig investigated the darkness and picked up something he found. He planned to check his belongings later.
Look at my belongings. Now, I'm going to see if it says it's too dark in here.
Gillig looked to see what he was carrying, but it was too
That's
dark
what I
to
expected.
make out any details.
Exit tunnel.
Gillig carefully made his way back out of the tunnel.
I'm just going to wait for it because everybody. Gillig was in the entrance chamber of the hull. Like every time he says that, everyone's going to say it, alright? Gillig was at the entrance chamber to the hull. Examine inventory.
Gillig checked his belongings and noted he was carrying an ancient unlit torch, a fire-starting kit, a sling. Gillig was in the entrance chamber of the halt.
So you can't use use? Oh. Use is a verb. Wait, explain that to me again. You can press the up arrow to previous entered commands. Use or with may not be the first word. Start with an action word. So, use or with. That's weird. So, example, instead of saying use keys on door, try unlock door with keys. Okay. Light, torch.
Gillig was ready to light the torch, but he needed to decide what to light it with.
With his tail. Alright, you know what? I'm just going to be sardonic here because I'm an ass. Alright, so what I'm going to say is light, torch with rudder butt. But, nope, don't know that word. Are you sure? Okay, it just randomizes it. I thought it was like specific. Okay, whatever.
Gillig went to light the torch, but realized he had nothing to do that with. Gillig was in the entrance chamber of the halt.
Light, torch with fire. Starter. Kit. Is that good enough for you? Thank you.
Gillig took everything from the fire-starting kit and lit the torch.
Right.
After doing so, the remaining bits of the ancient
That would
kit
suck if he had to
were
record it each time he
exhausted,
said it.
and it crumbled away.
Everybody, woo, boop, boop, boop. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Gillig was at the entrance chamber of the halt. So it says that a fire starting kit lit the torch. After doing so, examine a bit of ancient. All right, Gillig was at the entrance chamber to the halt. All right, so enter tunnel.
He walked through the open doorway. As Gillig clutched his lighted torch, he gave a huge sigh of satisfaction now that he was able to see in the dark tunnel. Gillig was in a twisty tunnel lined with rubble. At one end, the tunnel ended at a wide open space, and the other way went back to the entrance.
In the tunnel. Enter the wide open spaces. Did you mean enter the wide open space? Sure.
Gillig slowly walked down the slightly dim path ahead, letting his thoughts
Fine, ruin my
wander to the
country
day
song
at the River Moss when the woodlanders had to fight for their lives. Inside the walls of Cotir Castle,
more
the
exposition.
vermin ruler sat in her chamber and summoned her aid.
Listen carefully.
The evil queen Tarmina Greeneyes purred. The vile feline had an idea that would crush the peaceful woodland creatures.
I want you to go back to Kotir and bring the Gloomer here to Revamos.
Far beneath Cotir Castle, there was an underground cavern and a great lake. The only one who went down to the lake was the guard who was detailed to feed the Gloomer. He would take down the refuse from the barracks, leaving it a respectable distance from the post to which Gloomer's long chain was attached at the lake's edge. Verduga, the father of Gingivere and Sarmina, had captured Gloomer and brought him to Cotir long ago. The monster water rat was robbed of normal sight after years of swimming in the dark, murky waters of the lake. It had little hearing and no speech at all. None of this mattered while it still possessed the instincts of touch and smell. The Gloomer was a killer, savage and mindless, particularly when there was fresh meat to be had. At the woodlanders' Camp Willow, within the waters, something was beginning to come forward. A long shape, like a section of tree trunk, smooth, with a many-spiked dorsal fin emerged. Skipper leaned forward and patted the giant pike's fin. Listen, mate. That big pussycat may have a Gloomer, but us otters got a storm fin. Gillig's thoughts were broken as he walked into the large open space. Gathering his wits, he pondered what else might he discover by looking around and then closely examining things he found.
So let's talk a little bit about this sentence right here. Here's the thing, and this is a spoiler. I read Redwall like maybe once when I was like in 5th grade. I don't remember becoming enthralled with the series, interestingly enough, and I think sentences like this are the reason why. Berndaog, the father of Ginevere and Zazmar, had captured the Gloomer. Who cares who Verdagog's family father is? Or who, like, no, wait, invert that. See, like, I even have to, maybe it's just because I'm sick, but it's very old-timey English. It's like, let's put the article after the thing. Like, it's like, name, and here are their sons and daughters, their children. But are they sons or daughters? I don't know. Who are these people? Why is this being brought up? I don't know. Is this useful information? Not really. Does it create immersion? I guess. Oh God. Anyways, gathering his wits, he pondered what else he might discover by looking closely and examining things he found. I don't know what to do, George. Maybe I should examine things. Like, I'm gonna just say that, because I don't know what else they want me to say.
Gillig checked his belongings and noted he was carrying a flickering smoky torch, barely giving any light, a sling. Gillig was in a large open area with many interesting features.
Examine the feature. Well, you're the one that just told me that they're interesting features. Interest items are things of interest, I guess. Examine things of interest. Oh, you don't know what an interest is? Well, you just said interesting. So, look around.
Gillig was in a large cavernous hall filled with rubble. Nearby was the twisty tunnel that led back to the entrance, and a bubbling
The
spring
exposition's tough.
streaming into a short tunnel. Gillig strained his eyes
I
in
was
the
bad at that
darkness,
when I
but could
first
only
started
see a
writing.
little above his head
Like,
on the
I was
walls
really
by
bad
the
at
light of the
exposition
flickering
notes.
torch. Just barely visible, scratched above on a wall, was a riddle. Playful otters we may be, but fighters fierce upon the sea.
Arr.
Climb the target up above to find the fun that otters love. Strangely, there was no target in sight. He saw a ring of stones around a blackened pit.
Examine the pit.
Gillig examined the blackened pit and saw the evidence of numerous fires. There was nothing remaining in the fire pit that could be burned.
Oh, man.
The otters who once occupied the hold had more than enough wood for a large fire that would light the whole room for feasts. The stones circling the pit were set deeply into the solid floor. Some looked a little cracked from the constant heating and cooling they had undergone. Gillig was in a large open area with many interesting features.
Is this going to be our new entrance to the halt? We are in a large open area with many interesting features. Light fire pit, even though I know I can't.
Gillig attempted to light the fire pit, but could not decide what to use to do it. Gillig was in a large open area with many interesting features.
Now I'm going to say it every time he says it, okay? So the thing about exposition, okay, I understand it in English. Like the funny thing is that it's very much the thing is like as we get more interconnected and as we get more people connected together, like exposition is really seen as very much a faux pas. People want to experience the world through experiencing it. They really don't want to like backstory and like all these things. And I think the reason is obviously there's a lot of media out there, and like I think that's the big reason why. But also because like language is more denser, and language always tries to dense itself up in times of like because if you could say something extremely well crafted in like a few words, it's better than just like basically like the age of like that. Yeah, I know. That age of use or no, can't say use light fire hit with torch. You idiot.
Gillig attempted to light the fire pit with his torch, but to no avail. There was no fuel in the pit. Through the dim light of the torch, Gillig could just make out a scrawling placed high on the wall. Though squint as he may, it was still too dark for him to read. Gillig was in a large open area with many interesting features.
Torch. 2. Read. Scrawling. Do you know the word scrawling? Yes, he does.
Gillig raised the torch up high, but there was not enough light to see anything further in the murky heights above him. Gillig was in a large open area with many interesting features. Gillig was in a large cavernous hall filled with rubble. Nearby was the twisty tunnel that led back to the entrance and a bubbling spring streaming into a short tunnel. Gillig strained his eyes in the darkness, but could only see a little above his head on the walls by the light of the flickering torch. Just barely visible, scratched above on a wall, was a riddle. Playful otters we may be, but fighters fierce upon the sea. Climb the target up above to find the fun that otters love. Strangely, there was no target in sight. Glancing around,
how am I supposed to get my
he saw
groceries?
a ring of stones around a blackened pit.
Playful otters we may be, but fighters fierce upon the sea. Playing the target up above to find the fun that otters love. Playing the target up above. I have no idea. Playful otters, we may be fighter spirits upon the sea, climb the target up above to find the fun that otters love. What fun does otters love? Don't answer that. Yeah, I know. Interesting features that are rubble. Examine the rubble. That's all I could think of right now.
Gillig looked at the rubble and saw it was filled with rocks and wood scraps. Gillig was in a large open area with many
Take wood
interesting
scraps.
features. Gillig collected some wood scraps from the rubble. With a fire pit already made, all Gillig had to do was drop some wood into the pit, along with something to light it.
Yeah, I got that.
Gillig was in a large open area with many
Can I
interesting
say
features.
place? Wood in pit.
Gillig dropped the wood scraps he was carrying into the fire-blackened pit.
Light
Gillig was
the
in a
wood.
large oak. Gillig attempted to light the fire pit, but could not decide what to
Light
use to do it.
the
Gillig
pit
was in a large
with
open area
torch.
with many interesting
You
features.
stupid idiot.
Gillig tossed the torch into the fire pit and stood back as the fire roared to life. He was in a large cavernous hall filled with rubble. Bright light
And interesting
glowed around the
features.
room as the
Don't forget the
firelight
interesting
flickered
features.
and danced in the fire pit. Nearby was the twisty tunnel that led back to the entrance and a bubbling spring streaming into a short tunnel. High above the fully exposed riddle was a small round target. Down to the rabbits we will go, through the bunny burrow below. They flee from us and hide their food, but we'll bring 'em for hullabaloo. Playful otters we may be, but fighters fierce upon the sea. Climb the target up above to find the fun that otters love. Visible was a fire pit with a burning fire in it. Gillig could not take his mind off the meaning of the riddle. His eyes furrowed at the memory of the day before. At the first light of dawn, Skipper met with Gonf and Gillig. Gonf, this here is Gillig, the otter I...
Hi! Pleased to meet you, matey.
Gonf excitedly shook Gillig's paw. The young otter gave a bewildered look to Skipper, who merely laughed. Now why don't you tell the lad what you told me? The mouse balladeer quickly responded in song.
The Prince of Mouse Thieves knows a way to get into Cotier today. The Gloomer who's guarded it so, no longer a reason not to go. Within the abandoned hold you'll take a slide to depths, direct to lake. Just find the otter's bunny burrow and you'll know what to do.
The mouse thief grinned from ear to ear. Gillig shook himself free of his thoughts of the past. He suddenly jumped, realizing perhaps he could find the bunny burrow the mouse thief had sung about, and maybe even the scroll itself.
So I should probably take rock from rubble. Right?
Gillig picked up a nearby rock from the rubble.
Gillig was in a large area with many interesting features. Just in case you weren't aware. Load rock into sling.
Gillig loaded a smooth pebble into the sling and was ready to fire it.
Gillig was in a large area with many interesting features. Just in case you forgot. I mean, it's kind of like one of the annoying things about these kind of games. And I notice it's a thing. And I don't know if it's because of poor programming or just like fear of losing the user, right? Like they always have this anchoring sentence at the end of it. I don't know if you've played like any of these like open text or open adventure RP kind of games in Flash or anything like like those kind of games, but it seems to be a no, yeah, no, we're still in that area with many interesting features. We were always there. It's just that there was rubble and we lit a fire, and now we're gonna shoot target with pebble, maybe.
With the stone in his sling, Gillig shot at the target, hitting it
Oh, we're gonna
perfectly
get a
in
nice
the
little
center.
music.
The
Here we
stone
go. Ready?
ricocheted off with a clang and landed in the rubble. A heavy thump sounded in his ears, erupting from the short tunnel.
Yeah. 3, 2, 1.
Gillig
Gillig
was
was
in
in
a
a
large
large
open
open
area
area
with
with
many
many
interesting
interesting features.
features.
Look at short tunnel.
The shallow stream bubbled from the spring and flowed into the short tunnel of the fire pit room. It looked just large enough for Gillig to walk into. Gillig
Gillig
was in
was in
a
a
large
large open
open
area
area with
with
many
many
interesting
interesting features.
features.
Let's get out of this large open area with many interesting features. Enter short tunnel.
Gillig stepped through the water and entered the short tunnel. Gillig
Gillig
was at
was
the
at the
end of
end
a
of a
very
very
short
short
tunnel.
tunnel. Let me guess, is that our new word now? Is that our new anchoring phrase? All right. Look at the water.
Gillig examined the pool closer and saw that it was as large around as a fully grown badger.
Hey,
Even
Boozy.
as it was constantly fed, it was still full of water and had not overflown. Gillig felt like a dibbon as he was drawn to leap into the pool of water and swim all around as only otters could do so well. Gillig was at the end of a very short tunnel.
Yes. Yes, he is. Felt like a dibbon as he was drawn. Swim.
Gillig leaped down into the pool and swam powerfully through the water. The otter skillfully navigated the winding underwater path and swam upward to the surface. He climbed out of the water. Gillig shook his head. A slow smile played on his lips.
Dry off.
He wanted to dry something, but could not figure out how. Gillig was in the otter's bunny burrow.
Ah. Examine the bunny burrow.
Gillig was in the otter's bunny burrow. It was lit by a metal mirror high up on the wall that cleverly reflected the light of the fire pit through holes in the rock walls. A steady stream of water flowed from the drain hole he had come from and emptied into a large downward slanting hole in the floor. Bees droned fuzzily around a large beehive nested above it. Against one wall was a nest full of unhatched snake eggs.
Oh my goodness.
Gillig shuddered
Wasn't
when he saw them. Above the drain hole was a wooden drain cover that was connected by a rope coming out of the wall. He had caused it to open when he had hit the target in the fire pit room. On the floor was a coil of rope, and near it there was a large metal ring that was attached to the rocky wall. On a side wall was a large wooden sign dangling from a single wire.
So Gillig was in the otter's bunny burrow is probably our new anchoring phrase. Yep. They only started it with the anchoring phrase this time. It was lit by a metal high mirror up on the wall that was clearly reflecting the lights of the fire pit through the holes in the rock walls. He said his water float. Bees droned fuzzily around a large beehive nested around it. Against one wall was a nest full of unhatched snake eggs. Gillig shuddered when he saw them. Above the drain hole was a wooden drain cover that was connected by a rope. Above the drain hole was a wooden rope that caused it to open when he targeted the firearm on the wall. Full of rope, and near it was a large metal ring wall. Examine the wooden sign.
He wanted to look at something, but it was either not visible to him, or he could not find anything about it. The way into Cotir and to
Right.
Verleber's scrawl is through the otter's bunny burrow. Gillig recalled Skipper's words yet again. Gillig was in the otter's bunny burrow.
The way to Kargar and the is through the bunny barn. Look at drain.
He wanted to look at something, but it was either not visible to him, or he could not find anything about it. Gillig was in the otter's bunny burrow.
I'm guessing we're going to hear that a lot.
Gillig was in the otter's bunny burrow. It was lit by a metal mirror high up on the wall that cleverly reflected the light of the fire pit through holes in the rock walls. A steady stream of water flowed from the drain hole he had come from and emptied into a large downward slanting hole in the floor. Bees droned fuzzily around a large beehive nested above it. Against one wall was a nest full of unhatched snake eggs. Gillig shuddered when he saw them. Above the drain hole was a wooden drain cover that was connected by a rope coming out of the wall. He had caused it to open when he had hit the target in the fire pit room. On the Gillig's eyes widened as he looked at the eggs. The young otter knew snake eggs when he saw them. His heart raced as fear began to constrict around him, much like the snakes which he was so deathly afraid of. Gillig was in the otter's bunny burrow.
Asmodeus, 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 Asmodeus. Asmodeus. That is one name I do remember because of that stupid little parody thing I made up. I do remember that antagonist. Crush snake eggs. Oh, nope. Can't say crush. I don't know how to crush something. Destroy. Oh, you don't know how to destroy something. Take snake eggs. Oh, that's what I was supposed to do?
Gillig moved about, gently making his way forward. He did not notice the swarm of angry bees had erupted from the hive until too late. They hovered over him, looking grim and vengeful. He smiled impudently, aware from the sight of his sticky fur he had accidentally brushed the beehive. In the silence that followed, he backed slowly, holding both paws out with an air of innocence. The bees began to attack him. Gillig swatted furiously as the maddened mass forced him flailing around the room. He tumbled over the coil of rope and struggled to extricate himself. Tossing and swiping about, the young otter had fallen over backward and slid into the hole as the rope and beehive trailed behind him.
So basically it forced me to do what it wanted me to do. Because I was like, take the
As
snake
Gillig
eggs, and they're
fell,
like,
he glanced momentarily behind him and read the sign hanging on the wall.
Hark me, Hearty. Make a stern rope fast to this ring afore you visit the soft bellies down below.
Whoops, now what? Gleefully, Gillig slid down the water slide. As the young otter played on the slide, he recalled that day at the River Moss, the clash between Gloomer the great rat and Stormfin the enormous pike. Skipper released the giant pike called Stormfin. The pike rushed through the sluice gate, creating a miniature tidal wave as he travelled. Swift chevrons of water rippled out to both sides of the bank as Stormfin sped downstream like a great arrow. Gloomer thrashed the water as he swam upstream, feeling his prey getting near. The onlookers on the bank saw a spout of water shoot high like a geyser as the combatants crashed together. Stormfin rose clear of the river, swishing his tail in a mighty leap. He launched himself back into the water like a downward torpedo with gaping teeth. Gloomer was waiting. The surface boiled in a welter of cascading water, shimmering scales and ragged fur. The whole scene streaked with blood. Stormfin thwacked away at Gloomer's injured side with his heavy tail like a stout paddle. He had severed Gloomer's tail and was tearing ferociously at the rat's hindquarters. Stormfin's jaws clamped tight and dragged the rat backward, down into a deep pit beneath the bank. The watchers on the bank saw Gloomer's front claws emerge wildly from the water, grasping at thin air before they vanished beneath the surface. The destroyer from Cotir was beaten. Stormfin had finally won. Gillig sighed with relief, knowing he would never have to worry about meeting the vile Gloomer. Suddenly, the water slide ended, and Gillig found himself tumbling downwards in the air, head over rudder through a large dark space. The fall was quickly broken as he splashed down into a dark body of water. Within his mind, a badger lord became visible. He smiled as he spoke with the softness of a winter's night, declaring that you have earned the achievement title of Novice Explorer.
Aw, only a novice. Oh no. Hey, Golden Bonnie, what's up? So we're doing our adventure game. So yeah. So we completed chapter 1. Now, that last room had some elements to it that I do think like warrants maybe an like additional playthrough if people like if you obviously we're just going to play it through once and not worry about like trying to do things optimally, but I think that last room had a timer on it, and I think that's what happened. I made like a few wrong statements, and then like the bees just got angry, right? And the bees kind of pushed me into the next room. So if I had done things right, then I could have maybe done something a little different. But who knows? Let's see. Start chapter 2. Hey, we get a new picture. Meet Gloomer. This is the picture, right? Ooh.
Chapter 2. Meet Gloomer.
Meet Gloomer.
A few days previously, the destroyer from Cotir was beaten. Stormfin had finally won. Or had he?
Dun dun dun.
Within the cold, dark depths of the river Moss, and unknown to the triumphant Stormfin, the sorely wounded Gloomer quickly squirmed into a tight crevice in the rocky walls of the bank. Instinctively huddling into it to escape the fury of Stormfin, he pushed into the rough, narrow, water-filled tunnel, one just large enough for him, but not the gigantic pike. Safe from the gigantic pike, Gloomer swam up the narrow hollow until he broke through the water with a heaving gasp. Each deep breath echoed harsh against the surrounding stone, informing him that he was in a small cavern. The smells of his fur soaked in blood intruded into his nostrils, and the agony of his legs was more than the beast could bear. His vision was blurred, unable to distinguish anything aside from the light and darkness from the faint phosphorescent glows that filled the room. The room reeled as Gloomer attempted to center himself while he floated in the water. With all his might, he desperately began to search for a way out. Gloomer was floating in some water.
Oh, okay. So we get to play the antagonist now. Hey, Tony and Golden.
Now you play as Gloomer the
I
Great
noticed
Rat.
that.
He is yours to command as you work to rescue him from the cave.
I thought it was
He was
escape from the
floating
Gloomer,
at the
not escape
surface of a
as the
pool of
Gloomer.
water within a small, faintly glowing cave. Gloomer could see the glow all around him. Everything else was dim and fuzzy to the nearly blind Great Rat.
Smell the water.
Gloomer sniffed the water and smelt the scent of stormfin mingled with the scent of the mossflower woodlands. Gloomer was floating in some water.
Swim to shore.
Gloomer swam around and bumped into a ledge just at head height. The accomplishment sound as Gloomer is a bit different. Gloomer was floating in some water.
Examine water.
Gloomer attempted to see what was around him. His eyes were nearly sightless after years of swimming in the dark, murky waters of the lake, and could barely distinguish light from dark. Gloomer was floating in the pool. Gloomer desperately searched for a way to get out of the water and away from the hungry pike.
Smell water.
Gloomer sniffed the water and smelt the scent of stormfin mingled with the scent of the mossflower woodlands. Gloomer was floating in some water.
Swim toward woodland. Moss flower. Smell.
Gloomer swam around and bumped into a ledge just at head height. Gloomer felt water dripping on him. The ledge was just low enough for him to climb up onto. Gloomer desperately searched for a way to get out of the water and away from the hungry pike. Gloomer was floating in some water.
If you didn't know that already.
Gloomer swam around and bumped into a ledge just at head height. Gloomer was floating in some water.
Wow. Wait, hold on. I need to screenshot this one. This one's great. Hold on a second. Nope, 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 nope. That's not what. What? That work? F12. Find print screen maybe? I don't know. Get your dang flu shots. Yeah, I know, right? I don't think it's flu. I have no idea what it is. Gloomer was floating in some water. Gloomer swam around. I got my flu shot though, so uh yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's bronchitis, maybe it's definitely not corona. I haven't really been around a lot of places to get that. The ledge was low enough for him to climb on. Gloomer desperately searched. Climb up on ledge. Fine. Climb. Climb. Dang it. Climb. It's not gonna work with this, is it? Hold on. Yeah. Hold on a second. Shut up, thing. Hold on a second. Let me get my L back. My L key doesn't work that well, so I've got to do Control C. Put them back here. Climb. Ledge.
Gloomer winced in frustration as he slowly paddled forward. He floundered through the water as his tail was no longer able to aid his balance. Within a pause
No, it's
length of
definitely a
Gloomer,
sickness.
the top of his head bumped
I
into the
haven't been
solid
coughing that
ledge.
much because I've been
Exerting
improving, but
all
like
his
all week,
strength,
but
the
I was
exhausted
really
fighter
bad.
heaved himself onto the rock ledge. Gloomer's nose twitched. The smell of several serpents wafted from the ledge into his nostrils. The great rat could feel the many vibrations in the rock as it slithered closer to him. The fearsome monster quickly attacked the water snake. Though the savage was greatly weakened after his battle with Stormfin, the snake was no match for the great rat. He took a mighty swipe at the large snake, forcing it to retreat to the wall. Sounds of younger hisses filled his ears, and without regard to his wounds, the wrath of the maddened beast was upon them. Silence fell upon the cavern. Finally, exhausting the last of his strength, Gloomer fell into a deep sleep. When he awoke, he found his wounds had only just begun to heal. Achingly, he pulled himself up from the ground.
Anchor state.
Gloomer was on a rock ledge.
Smell air.
Gloomer smelt the lingering odors of snake and stormfin. After countless seasons swimming beneath Cotir, Gloomer had felt every piece of his lake, but this cave was unfamiliar to the blind rat. Gloomer was on a rock ledge.
Smell. Move away from lake.
Gloomer was on a rock ledge.
Feel ground.
Gloomer ran his tattered paws around the floor. The solid rock was covered in mud, and the pool of water rested in the center of the cave.
I'm a bad guy. I'm
Feeling
playing a
around the
bad guy. It's
sides of
not
the
happy
air bubble
music.
cave, he felt a hard rock wall with many roots growing from it. One spot, though, was soft and spongy. Gloomer was on a rock ledge.
Anyways, rain is here. Covered in mud, and the pool's full over. Feeling around the sides of the air bubble cave, he felt a hard rock wall. Feel spongy wall.
Gloomer felt the dense material move inward slightly as his paws pressed the soft, spongy area. The opening was slightly smaller than the bulk of the enormous great rat. The enraged Gloomer swiped about ferociously. The water rat sensed the murky waters of Katir Cavern was near, but the cave's stone wall stood between him and his home. Gloomer was on a rock ledge.
Attack. Mossy or spongy wall.
Gloomer snuffled and clawed as he dug with his paws into the dense material of the soft, spongy area. The savage had burrowed out a small tunnel opening. At the very tips of his claws, he felt a plug of material remain further than his paws could reach. Gloomer sensed his salvation was near, but how to proceed?
Very old school.
The great rat was stumped. Gloomer was on a rock ledge.
Savage burrow as well at the very tips. As they dug into his paws with material, the savage had burrowed out a small tunnel opening at the very tips of his claws. He felt a plug of material remain further. Reach a hole with tail?
Gloomer ran his tattered paws around the floor. The solid rock was covered in mud, and the pool of water rested in the center of the cave. Feeling around the sides of the air bubble cave, he felt a hard rock wall with many roots growing from it. Gloomer felt a tunnel opening in the wall of the cave. Gloomer reached in the opening as far as he could with just his paw. At the tips of his claws, he felt a plug of material that remained further than his paws could reach. He could not push further, as the opening was slightly smaller than the bulk of the enormous great rat. Gloomer's paws were not long enough to reach any further into the tunnel. He surveyed his surroundings, mindlessly searching for something to extend his reach. Gloomer was on a rock ledge.
They hid that in there. Hid that one. Hey, Ava, how's it going? Jump. Jump. No. Smell or search or stick.
Gloomer ran his tattered paws around the floor. The solid rock was covered in mud, and the pool of water rested in the center of the cave. Feeling around the sides of the air bubble cave, he felt a hard rock wall with many roots growing from it.
There we go.
Gloomer felt a tunnel opening in the wall of the cave. Gloomer reached in the opening as far as he could with just his paw. At the tips of his claws, he felt a plug of material that remained further than his paws could reach. He could not push further, as the opening was slightly smaller than the bulk of the enormous great rat. Gloomer was on a rock ledge. He wanted to drop something, but realized he did not have it. Gloomer was on a rock ledge.
Are you serious? Yeah. Jump off rock ledge. There we go. Yeah. Let's try that.
He jumped all around, and although it was good exercise, it didn't accomplish anything. Gloomer was on a rock ledge.
Reach into hole with tail.
Gloomer ran his tattered paws around the floor. The solid rock was covered in mud, and the pool of water rested in the center of the cave. Feeling around the sides of the air bubble cave, he felt a hard rock wall with
Freedom
many
just out of
roots
reach.
growing
These
from it.
collapse against the cave wall.
Gloomer felt a tunnel opening in the wall of the cave. Gloomer reached in the opening as far as he could with just his paw. At the tips of his claws, he felt a plug of material that remained further than his paws could reach. He could not push further, as the opening was slightly smaller than the bulk of the enormous great rat. With freedom just out of reach, the exhausted rat collapsed against the cave wall.
Take
The long roots jutting out from the wall. Gloomer pulled at the root. The root was firmly attached, and he just could not pull it out, no matter how hard he tugged and tugged. A small piece of the tip broke off and fell into the water and vanished. The root in the wall was as long as his arm and springy. It felt a little like a carrot root, but more flexible. Gloomer was on a rock ledge.
small piece of wood. So it's gonna pull the root. The root is firmly attached. It's in the water. Get root from water.
Gloomer pulled at the root. The root was firmly attached, and he just could not pull it out, no matter how hard he tugged and tugged. A small piece of the tip broke off and fell into the water and vanished. The root in the wall was as
Reach
long as his
into
arm and
hole
springy. It
with
felt a little
root.
like a carrot. Gloomer ran his tattered paws around the floor. The solid rock was covered in mud, and the pool of water rested in the center of the cave. Feeling around the sides of the air bubble cave, he felt a hard
Oh
rock
my
wall
God.
with many roots growing from it. Gloomer felt a tunnel opening in the wall of the cave. Gloomer reached in the opening as far as he could with just his
Into
paw.
opening
At the
using
tips of his claws,
root.
Gloomer ran his tattered paws
Oh my
around
God.
the floor. The solid rock
Search
was
water
covered in mud,
for
and the pool of water rested in the
water
center
for
of the
root.
cave. He felt the water, and the insane great rat confirmed to himself that it was indeed still wet. Gloomer was on a rock ledge. The root in the wall was as long as his arm and springy. It felt a little like a carrot root, but more flexible. He had spent many seasons imprisoned beneath Cotir. He had tried to chew through his chain many times. But now he was free of his chain, only to be sealed beneath the woodlands in a cave guarded by a monstrous pike. Gloomer was on a rock ledge.
Right? I mean, now it's like, okay, now we're in difficult territory. Enter water.
He entered the pool of water. Gloomer felt water dripping on him. Gloomer was floating in some water.
Get root.
Gloomer reached for a root, but finds he cannot do that from where he is. Gloomer was floating in some water.
Search water for root.
Gloomer ran his tattered paws around and felt a solid ledge jutting out of the water at the level of his head. The rock was jagged and rough in his paws. His claws traced through the rock and became filled with muck, the familiar scent of
I'm
mud
starting to get
and
like some
grass that to
glitching
his
here where there's like
nostrils.
double.
Gloomer was floating in some water. Gloomer ran his tattered paws around
Wow.
and felt a solid ledge
That is
jutting
funny.
out of the water at the level of his head. The
Dive
rock
underwater.
was jagged and rough in his paws. Gloomer thought of going back down into the river moss, but the great rat knew he wouldn't survive another battle with the terrible pike. Gloomer was floating in some water. Gloomer ran his tattered paws around and felt a solid ledge jutting out of the water at the level of his head. The rock was jagged and rough in his paws. His claws traced through the rock and became filled with muck, the familiar scent.
Now.
Gloomer climbed back onto the ledge. Gloomer felt water dripping on him. Gloomer was on a rock ledge.
Examine the rock ledge. Jesus. I have no idea.
Gloomer attempted to see what was around him. His eyes were nearly sightless after years of swimming in the dark, murky waters of the lake, and could barely distinguish light from dark. He was on the ledge and hunched over on its muddy patch of rock in the air bubble cave. Gloomer could see the glow all around him. Everything else was dim and fuzzy to the nearly blind great rat. Gloomer felt water dripping on him. He had spent many seasons imprisoned beneath Cotir. He had tried to chew through his chain many times. Gloomer wondered if one of the roots growing through the wall could aid his digging.
How can roots help you dig? Dig with root.
Gloomer prepared to dig with the root, but it was still attached to the wall of the cave. Gloomer was on a rock ledge.
Chew through the root.
Gloomer grabbed the longest
There we go.
root
Jeez,
in
that
the
was easy
world
enough.
until it came
Wow.
off in his
I feel
paws.
dumb.
Oddly, the root tasted like a carrot, but was a bit more flexible. Again and again, the paranoid great rat checked to see
Yeah, I
if the
got
root
it,
was
Bonnie.
still living.
I feel like an idiot. It's like, oh yeah, I'm a rat. I can chew things.
Gloomer was on a rock ledge.
Dig with root.
The evil great rat poked and dug deep into the material with the root. With a whoosh, the root was pulled from Gloomer's grip, going through the matted material into the empty space beyond. As the plug in the wall fell apart, the river moss, with all the speed of a hare warrior chasing vile vermin, flooded up into the previously sealed cave. The water seized the bulk of the great rat and pressed him into the newly created tunnel. Suddenly, he stopped. His enormous body was too wide to go completely through it. Gloomer was stuck like a cork in a bottleneck. Behind him, the force of the river moss pushed on him, and in front of him was pure darkness.
Mm-mm. Pop. Pull. Free. Out of hole? How did I end up in this position?
Gloomer scratched wildly, but could not dig himself out of his predicament. Gloomer was trapped in the dark rock tunnel. His large hips were pressed by smooth rock, with the force of the river moss at his back. The monstrous great rat was stuck like a cordial bottle cork. He was unable to lift his rear legs to allow his claws to get a purchase on the rock that had him in its grip. The great rat kicked with his legs and swiped with his paws, but all he grasped was the open air. Only his hips had contact with solid rock. Gloomer was trapped like a rat. Wait, he was a rat.
Dang it! It all makes sense now. That's why. Okay. Gyrate. Oh, come on. Those rat hips. Come on. You gotta let me get the hips. How about thrust hips? That's just way too. Nope, can't say thrust. Okay. Wriggle. Oh, wriggle is it? Wriggle hips. Oh yeah, baby. Let's wriggle the hips.
Gloomer squirmed, shook, wiggled, jiggled, and twisted as best his bulk would allow. Roaring like an enraged badger, the great force of the river moss suddenly launched Gloomer down the winding dark tunnel. Minutes passed as his body tumbled, then shot like an arrow from a squirrel's bow, he was suddenly hurtling through the air. In a great splash, the giant landed into the familiar waters of the underground lake beneath Cotir Keep. Behind Gloomer, a new small waterfall had appeared in the wall of the cavern. Its waters fell down into the lake in an endless torrent. Gloomer surfaced with water dripping from his ugly bulk. His monstrous head had appeared from the depths like the worst kind of vision from a bad dream. As he inhaled deeply, his nostrils were filled with the scent of fresh meat. The killer rat mindlessly followed the scent and swam forward towards the smell of a live, tasty otter. A badger lord suddenly manifested in his thoughts, as if some sort of dreamlike state. He spoke ever so softly, and declared that you have earned the achievement title of Daydream Crasher.
Well, they didn't accept thrust or they accepted wriggle. which wriggling the hips aren't bad. But yeah, apparently I just now the Mr. Gloomer here knows I'm here. He knows I'm here.
Chapter 3. The Chase.
Dun dun dun.
Gillig the otter, relaxing
Probably the last
peacefully
chapter
on the
for the night.
surface of Cotir Cavern Lake, dreamily remembered. Skipper had given a good-natured chuckle and slapped a paw on Gillig's shoulder. What we need is a mate who'll sneak into Cotir and retrieve it up in Cotir Cavern, all right, just with no way out at the moment, but at least monstrous Gloomer coming quickly. Gillig and Skipper hadn't counted on Gloomer being loose in the caverns. It all seemed so simple before. In his mind's ear, Gillig could almost hear what the balladeer Gonf would sing about this new predicament.
A 3-hour ruse, a 3-hour ruse, mission will be lost. The Gloomer crashed on the shore of this uncharted hidden lake, with Gilligan, no skipper too, a million cares but he's wise, now moving on with no rest, here in Gillig's exile.
Gillig saw the oncoming vile beast and knew he had to escape the Gloomer. Gillig was floating in the lake. The maddened water rat was making right for Gillig.
Great. So I gotta mention one thing here. Yeah, I had a joke. So we showed it. So retrieve the scroll so that we can show it to the Thousand Eyes troops. Oh, so you mean there's 500 of them? What? There's 500 members of your troop. What makes you say that? Oh, because they're Thousand Eyes. You see, they both got 2 eyes apiece. Oh, that's kind. Oh no, that's an assumption. No, man. There's actually 409. There's actually 449 of them. God, I can't do math right now. There's actually 499. Actually, there's five. No, I have to go up. See, I can't do math right now. No, ma'am, there's 501. 501? That makes no sense. Like, yeah, well, once 2 of them lost 1 eye. Sharks. Maybe if I did my math better, I could have landed that one a little better. Like 201. No, some of them lost 1 eye. Oh no. Right? I know, right? That bard sucks. Go quit his day job. Swim away! Swim
Gillig
away!
was blocked by Gloomer in most directions. He saw that perhaps he might be able to make it to the sandy beach. Gillig swam to the beach by the waterfall and ran out of the water. Gillig was in terror with the monstrous water rat bearing down at him. He only had a split second to look around and notice a few things. He was on a sandy beach by the lake. There was a very large stalactite on its side, nestled deep within the sands. In front of him and across the lake, he saw a rocky shore against the wall of the cavern. Making right for Gillig was an enraged Gloomer.
He saw he was on a sandy beach by the lake. There was a very large stalactite on its side, nestled deep in the sands. In front of him, across the lake, he saw a rocky shore. Pick up stalactite.
Gillig was running out of things to do with Gloomer so close, as he would surely be caught by the monstrous great rat. Gillig was on the lake's large sandy beach by the waterfall. Gillig's eyes widened in horror as he witnessed the oncoming Gloomer.
Run to rock wall.
Gillig was blocked by Gloomer in most directions. He thought he might be able to make it to the smooth, rocky shore. Gillig knew whichever way he chose to go, he had to get away quickly. Gillig was on the lake's large sandy beach by the waterfall. Gillig's eyes widened in horror as he witnessed the oncoming Gloomer.
Get onto the shore.
Gillig swam to the smooth, rocky shore and made a dash out of the water, leaving a glowing wake that slowly
A
faded
Gloomer
to black
appears.
behind him. Gillig was in terror with the monstrous water rat bearing down at him. He only had a split second to look around and notice a few things. He was on a rocky shore by the lake. He saw a tall post and a closed gate with unlit stairs behind it going upward. In front of him and across the lake, he saw an island. Charging straight for Gillig was the very angry Gloomer.
Go upstairs.
Gillig was running out of things to do with Gloomer so close, as he would surely be caught by the monstrous great rat. Gillig was on the smooth rock
Look
shore
at
of the lake.
stairs.
Gillig was in terror with the monstrous water rat bearing down at him. He only had a split second to look around and notice a few things. Gillig was in such terror he was not able to take the time to look at his surroundings carefully. He would have to investigate after he got to someplace safe, if Gloomer did not catch him first. The maddened water rat was making right for Gillig.
Run to island.
Gillig swam to the sandy island with a glowing wake left behind that soon went dark when he ran out of the water. Gillig was in terror with the monstrous water rat bearing down at him. He only had a split second to look around and notice a few things. He was on the sandy island at the center of the lake. He saw a beehive laying near the shore. In front of him and across the water was a slimy shore. Gloomer raged towards the young otter, with claws at the ready and mouth agape.
Load beehive into sling. This works. I'm gonna laugh.
Gillig was running out of things to do with Gloomer so close, as he would surely be caught by the monstrous great rat. Gillig was on the island.
Pick up beehive.
Gillig was running out of things to do with Gloomer
Look
so close,
at
as he would surely
beehive.
be caught. Gillig was in terror with the monstrous water rat bearing down at him. He only had a split second to look around and notice a few things. Gillig was in such terror he was not able to take the time to look at his surroundings carefully. He would have to investigate after he got to someplace safe, if Gloomer did not
Lure.
catch him first.
Can't lure.
Charging straight for Gillig was the very angry Gloomer.
Take beehive.
Gillig was running out of things to do with Gloomer so close, as he would surely be caught by the monstrous great rat. Gillig knew whichever way he chose to go, he had to get away.
Examine area.
Gillig was in terror with the monstrous water rat bearing down at him. He only had a split second to look around and notice a few things. He was on the sandy island at the center of the lake. he saw a beehive laying near the shore. In front of him and across the water was a slimy shore. Gillig knew whichever way he chose to go, he had to get a... Gillig was in terror with the monstrous water rat bearing down at him. He only had a split second to look around and notice a few things. Gillig quickly swam over to the slimy shore. Gloomer's nose twitched in the air. His head snapped in Gillig's direction.
Freaking bees, man! I want to launch bees at him.
Toward his prey. Gillig was in terror with the monstrous water rat bearing down at him. He only had a split second to look around and notice a few things. He was on a slimy shore by the lake. There were piles of carrion strewn about. In front of him and across the lake, he saw a jumble of rocks. Making right for Gillig was an enraged Gloomer.
Load, rock, into, sling.
Gillig was running out of things to do with Gloomer so close, as he would surely be caught by the monstrous great rat. Gillig was on the slimy rocks as he dodged the swiping claws of Gloomer. Gillig quickly scooped up a small stone. Gillig was on the slimy rocks by the lake.
Load, stone,
charging straight forward. Gillig was running out of things to do with Gloomer so close, as he would surely be caught by the monstrous great rat. Gillig was on the slimy rocks by the lake.
Use the frickin' hit him with a sling.
The maddened water rat was making right for Gillig.
Into, sling.
Gillig went to load his sling and realized he did not have it. Gillig knew whichever way he chose to go, he had to get away quickly. Gillig was on the slimy rock. Gillig tried to take another rock, but he could carry no more than one rock at the time. Gillig knew whichever way he chose to go, he had to get away. Gillig was running out of things to do with Gloomer so close, as he would surely be caught by the monstrous great rat. Gillig knew whichever way he chose. Gillig was in terror with the monstrous water rat bearing down at him. He only had a split second to look around and notice a few things. Gillig was in such terror, he was not able to take the time to look at his surroundings carefully. He would have to investigate after he got to someplace safe, if Gloomer did not catch him first. Gloomer's nose twitched in the air. His head snapped in Gillig's direction and began moving toward his prey. Gillig knew whichever way he chose to go. Gillig was in terror with the monstrous water rat bearing down at him. He only had a split second to look around and notice a few things. Gillig was in such terror, he was not able to take the time to look at his surroundings carefully. He would have to investigate after he got to someplace safe.
So, like, here's the thing. This is always a critical thing about these kind of things.
Whichever way he chose to go, he had to get away quickly.
Escape gear. Like,
Gillig was running out of things to do with Gloomer so close, as he would surely be caught by the monstrous great rat. Gillig knew whichever way he chose to go, he had to get away quickly. Gillig was on the slimy rocks by the lake.
Gloomer.
He scurried away madly from the furious water rat. Hurriedly, Gillig scooped up a rock and threw it at Gloomer, missing him completely. Gillig knew whichever way he chose to go, he had to get away quickly. Gillig was on the slimy rocks by the lake. He was about to drop the rock, but realized he did not have one. Gillig knew whichever way he chose to go, he had to get away quickly. Gillig was on the slimy rocks by the lake. Gillig was in terror with the monstrous...
God, I know he was in terror. I realized he was in terror.
He only had a split second to look around and notice a few things. Gillig was in such terror, he was not able to take the time to look at his surroundings carefully. He would have to investigate after he got to someplace safe, if Gloomer did not catch him first. Gillig knew whichever way he chose to go, he had to get away.
So what I'm going to do here is we're going to turn off this...
The maddened water rat.
Like, let's see, font opacity. I wonder if there's audio. Here we go. So we're going to turn that off for a bit because he's driving me nuts. Yeah, pick up rock. That's just why I quickly scooped up a small stone. Throw rock at beehive. If this works, I'm gonna have to thank you for that, Bonnie, because I would have never thought of that. Pick up rock. Swim to island. Blocked by Gloomer. Go to Jumbles. Alright, you can come back now. Gillick swam to the jumble rocks, leaving a glowing wake which noticeably got darker over time. Then he climbed out of the water. Gillick was in terror of the monstrous water rat bearing down on him, and he had a split second to look. Excuse me. To look around and notice a few things. He was at the bottom of a jumble of rocks by the lake. The ascending rocks looked like they could be climbed easily. Climb. All right. Climb rock wall.
Gillig wished he was a swift squirrel who might be able to climb the walls, but that was just not something he could do. Gillig was on the jumble of rocks by the lake.
Examine
Charging straight for
jumble
Gillig was
of
the
rocks.
very... Gillig was in terror with the monstrous water rat bearing down at him. He only had a split second to look around and notice a
Swim
few
to
things.
island.
Gillig was blocked by Gloomer in most directions. He thought he might make it to the shallows. Gillig was on a
Swim
jumble
to
of
the
rocks by the lake.
shallows.
He entered the shallows. The water was below his knees and swirled around his legs. Gillig was in terror with the monstrous water rat bearing down at him. He only had a split second to look around and notice a few things. He was in the shallows of the lake. Across the water, he saw a ledge ascending against the cavern wall. Charging straight for Gillig was the very angry Gloomer.
Climb ledge.
Gillig swam to the ledge by the waterfall. As he pulled himself out from the water, he noticed he had left a trailing wake of glowing water that slowly grew dark. Gillig was in terror with the monstrous water rat bearing down at him. He only had a split second to look around and notice a few things. He was on a ledge on the wall of the cavern overlooking the lake. To one side, the ledge sloped down to the shallows, and to the other, the ledge continued behind the waterfall. The maddened water rat was making right
Go
for Gillig.
behind waterfall.
Gillig turned sideways, then sidled behind the waterfall.
Hey, we made progress. Isn't that great? We would have
Gillig was on
died
a
several
thin
times.
shelf of rock behind the waterfall. In front of him, the waterfall was fascinating and glowing from phosphorescence. The downpour of water and mist made it difficult to see around him, but Gillig could still see the lake through the waterfall. The space was narrow on either side of him. One side led out to the sandy beach. The other side went up to a ledge that continued along the cavern wall before sloping down into the shallows. Gloomer was nowhere to be seen.
Glimmer was nowhere to be seen. One side led to the sandy beach, the other side went to the ledge. Go to Sandy Beach.
Gillig knew when he left the safety of the mists behind the waterfall, Gloomer would be able to smell him very quickly. Gillig realized that Skipper was not there to rescue him. The young otter was left to figure something out. Gillig was on a ledge behind the waterfall. He was facing the pouring fall, straining to see through the glows in the dense mists.
Go behind waterfall.
Gillig knew when he left the safety of the mists behind the waterfall, Gloomer would be able to smell him very quickly.
Don't go
Gillig was on a ledge
chasing.
behind the waterfall. He was facing the pouring fall, straining to see through the glows in the dense mists.
Enter mists. Mist.
Gillig knew when he left the safety of the mists behind the waterfall, Gloomer would be able to smell him very quickly. Gillig was on a thin shelf of rock behind the waterfall. In front of him, the waterfall was fascinating and glowing from phosphorescence. The downpour of water and mist made it difficult to see around him, but Gillig could still see the lake through the waterfall. The space was narrow on either side of him. One side led out to the sandy beach. The other side went up to a ledge that continued along the cavern wall before sloping down into the shallows. Gloomer was nowhere to be seen. Trapped behind the safety of the waterfall, Gillig was left to sense his surroundings within the dense mists.
Smell the air.
Gillig could smell the horrible scent of Gloomer somewhere nearby. Gillig was on a ledge behind the waterfall. He was facing the pouring fall, straining to see through the glows in the dense mists.
Go waterfall. Like I thought that's what I thought.
Gillig knew when he left the safety of the mists behind the waterfall, Gloomer would be able to smell him very quickly. Gillig was on a ledge behind the waterfall. He was facing the pouring
Look
fall.
around.
Gillig was on a thin shelf of rock behind the waterfall. In
Around
front
on
of
the
him,
space
the
narrow.
waterfall was fascinating and glowing from phosphorescence. The downpour of water and mist made it difficult to see around him, but Gillig could still see the lake through the... Gillig knew when he left the safety of the mists behind the
Remember the crew
waterfall,
always
Gloomer
Wi-Fi
would
with
be
that.
able to smell him very quickly. Gillig remembered the crew always watching the backs of one another. An otter always needed to look out for what could be behind. Gillig was on a ledge behind the waterfall. He was facing the pouring
Look
fall,
behind waterfall.
straining
That's
to
what I
see
said.
through
Did
the
I say that
glows in the
multiple
dense
times?
mists. Gillig noticed a rare and unusual sight, the backside of water. Within his mind, a badger lord became visible. He smiled as he spoke with the softness of a winter's night, declaring that you have earned the achievement title of Jungle Cruise Captain. Gillig remembered the crew always watching the backs of one another. An otter always needed to look out for what could be behind. Gillig was on a ledge behind the waterfall. He was facing the pouring fall, straining to see through the glows in the dense mists.
Go to the backside of the waterfall, just like the rivers and the lakes that you're used to.
Gillig knew when he left the safety of the mists behind the waterfall, Gloomer would be able to smell him very
Go
quickly.
behind.
Gillig was on a ledge. Gillig knew when he left the safety of the mists behind the waterfall, Gloomer would be able to smell him very quickly. Gillig was on a ledge behind the waterfall. He was facing the pouring fall, straining to see through the glows in the dense mists.
Look behind waterfall. Right? Didn't we do that?
The water from the falls glowed brightly with phosphorescence into the dark lake below. The water was glittering with the light as it rippled away from the waterfall, its glow fading as the waves stilled.
Dive in
Gillig was on a ledge behind the waterfall.
dark
He was facing the pouring. Gillig knew when he left the safety of the mists behind the waterfall, Gloomer would be able to smell
Next
him
one,
very
another.
quickly. Gillig remembered the crew always watching the backs of one another. An otter always needed to look out for what could be behind. Gillig was on a ledge behind the waterfall. He was facing the pouring. Gillig peered intently through the haze of phosphorescence.
Oh my God,
As he turned
fuckers.
around, his
Ah,
eyes
I'm
became
not
focused on the
happy right
tunnel
now.
entrance, penetrating from the enveloping mist. Gillig was on a...
I'm gonna get the narrator to shut up again. Hold on a second. Here's the thing. I admire sometimes games like this, but sometimes when they're done like where it's like you're obviously lost or you're obviously not getting good information and they're hiding it behind repetitive information, it kind of gets annoying. Um Enter tunnel. It literally took me like hold on. New game. No. Complete the can I do it? No. Can I no extras main audio. Here we go. Okay, so that's another like there's little things about the way that this game is designed or developed that I've got a few qualms with. Obviously, since it's a text adventure, um, having some tightness about it is kind of important. Um, I'm actually probably going to be more critical about this than the third person adventure game because like novella and sort of this kind of genre is my bag. I hate repetitive information. I understand the anchor phrases and stuff like that. Eventually, I was blind enough to see the tunnel, and the word was staring me right in the face. But as soon as I figured it out and I typed it, and I went to this, basically it loaded the data, and so basically I can't hear him say this anymore. So basically I'll have to read it. Hey, how's the weather there, Johnson? I missed saying what the weather was. You already got the weather. You're quick. You're getting quick, man. Anyways, Gillig stepped into the opening with Gloomer nowhere in sight and darkness before him. He dropped to his knees, overcome by weakness. The young otter was breathing heavily, his eyes flashing anxiously. Having barely escaped Gloomer's claws, his mind began to transport him back to the shouts of the otter crew in a equally terrifying feeling of not so long ago. He let Stormfin get away. Kick him out of the crew. Disgrace to the older kind he is. That's enough. Next one of you who starts shouting will get none of my hot root punch till spring comes save you. Skipper shouted, yelling otters quieted instantly, and he began to speak with full authority and voice. Belay the gob, and listen to me now. I'll have a word with this one. He slapped a heavy paw on Gillig's shoulder, nearly sending him head over a rudder before leading him away from the crew. A big burly otter called Root stepped forward, stopping Skipper with a raised paw. I saw the whole thing, Skip. The dimmin froze us. We were trying to wrangle the old pike. Then it nearly got snapped up. He spooked Stonefin off. I said I'll be talking to him, Skipper insisted firmly as Gillig stared down at his own feet. This ain't the first time something like this has happened. Ruining your hot root punch is one thing, but this is Stormfin we're talking about. What if that queen's got another water beast up her sleeve? What will he do then? Root retorted, with paws clenched, and in his gruffiest voice. You've done nothing but treat him like he your own. I've seen you stand up for every mess he made, but the crew and I been thinking there needs to be some talking this time. Skipper's face was grim and waved his muscular tail for silence. Aye, I'll handle it, Root. Now keep the crew calm while I do. Root looked reluctantly at Skipper and finally nodded. Why, Skip? Below Gillick could Before Gillick could plead, he was led to Skipper's private quarters. The otter leader sighed heavily, running a tired paw over his whiskers. Well, listen well, me hearty. I can't keep defending you, not with this one. You've passed years You're past the years of a dibblin'. It's time you stand on your own two paws. Old Skip ain't gonna take care of it. Gillick shook and closed his eyes as if he were trying to ward off memories. He had let Skipper and the crew down for the last time. Skipper believes in me. Skipper believes in me, and I've found another way to prove myself to the crew. I won't let him down again. Looking into the tunnel, he spotted a pumice rock upon the floor, which, before the rest, was swallowed into the darkness. He had to find the scroll, but he first had to find a way to avoid the Gloomer. Yeah. As you can tell, my voice acting is not going to be the greatest tonight, and hopefully I don't ruin the narrator ever again. But I do need to get a drink of water, right, or some liquid part of it because my voice is parched. Apparently, I was blowing my nose and I blew it a little too hard, a little bit. Um, uh, Hopefully, my inner ear gets fixed after I sit down a little bit because I had an issue balancing here. Blow out my inner ear, man. Don't do that. I'm like, whoa, I feel like I'm drunk. And it's like I didn't drink anything. All right. From Mr. Ross on the floor that rested in the shallow darkness, he had to look in rock pile.
He wanted to look at something, but it was either not visible to him, or he could not find anything about it. Gillig was in a tunnel behind the waterfall.
Examine. room.
Gillig was in a tunnel with a waterfall behind him and darkness ahead. Resting there was a large piece of pumice rock.
Look at pumice rock.
Gillig looked closely at the pumice rock. It was grey in colour and full of many holes.
The FWA's one
It
that
was
sounds
certainly
pretty
large
interesting.
enough to stand on, poorly rounded, and felt very light in his paws. Gillig took a deep breath and stared into the darkness. He remembered Skipper's words of encouragement when he felt afraid. "It'll take more than that to stop a freebooter like you. Keep moving onward." Gillig was in a tunnel behind the waterfall.
Large enough to stand on. Pick up rock.
He took a large piece of pumice. Gillig was in a tunnel behind the waterfall.
Load sling with pumice.
Gillig went to load his sling and realized he did not have it. Gillig was in a tunnel behind the waterfall.
Examine pumice.
Gillig looked closely at the pumice rock. It was grey in colour and full of many holes. It was certainly large enough to stand on, poorly
Look
rounded,
at
and felt very
inventory.
light. Gillig checked his belongings and noted he was carrying a small, smooth rock, a pumice rock. Recalling how before in the dark he had found a fire-starting kit, he wondered what could come from the darkness of the waterfall tunnel. Gillig was in a tunnel behind the waterfall.
Go into tunnel.
Gillig walked into the darkness. Straining to see, nothing was visible, and the awful darkness was unbroken.
Feel around.
Gillig felt around the darkness. He felt his paws being covered in some sort of powder. Gillig's nose twitched at the strange odor that filled his nostrils.
Uh-oh, it's a trap. Smell powder.
All Gillig could smell was the overwhelming rotten stench.
Leave tunnel. Oops.
Gillig found his way back into the waterfall tunnel. Gillig was in a tunnel with the waterfall behind him and darkness ahead. On the ground he noticed some distinct yellow paw prints.
Examine paw prints.
He looked at the yellow paw prints and saw they came from the dark end of the tunnel. With a sudden gasp of recognition, he realized they were exactly the same size as his own footpaws. Gillig was in a tunnel behind the waterfall.
Examine yellow substance. Yellow paw prints.
He looked at the yellow paw prints and saw they came from the dark end of the tunnel. With a sudden gasp of recognition, he realized they were exactly the same size as his own footpaws. Gillig was in a tunnel behind the waterfall.
Go into tunnel.
Gillig walked into the darkness. Straining to see, nothing was visible, and the awful darkness was unbroken. Gillig looked to see what he was carrying, but it was too dark to make out any details. Gillig found his way back into the waterfall tunnel. Gillig was in a tunnel with the
Look
waterfall
at
behind
inventory.
him. Gillig checked his belongings and noted he was carrying a small, smooth rock, a pumice rock. Gillig noticed traces of yellow powder on the pumice. Gillig noticed his paws were covered in a yellow powder. Gillig noticed his footpaws were covered in yellow powder. Gillig was in a tunnel behind the waterfall.
Examine the pumice. pumice rock.
Gillig looked closely at the pumice rock. It was grey in colour and full of many holes. It was certainly large enough to stand on, very rounded, and felt very light in his paws. Gillig noticed traces of yellow powder on the pumice. Gillig thought about how he could keep the blind Gloomer from tracking by his scent when he recalled Skipper's brother, Mask, an otter who was one of the best spies in Mossflower and a master of disguises as well. He had once shared with Gillig a trick for hiding from predators by covering oneself in foul smells, not unlike the awful-smelling powder in the cave. Gillig was in a tunnel behind the waterfall.
He snuck that anchor in there. Anyways, at least my ears are starting to get popped out again here, or back to normal. I hope that would be. It's like I don't want to have to go to the doctor to get my freaking balance fixed. Ew. Anyways, cover or go into dark tunnel.
Gillig walked into the darkness,
Roll around.
straining to see. Gillig rolled around in the cave and felt himself being covered in a powdery substance.
We're halfway there. Leave cave.
Gillig found his way back into the waterfall tunnel. Gillig was in a tunnel with the waterfall behind him and darkness ahead. On the ground he noticed some distinct yellow paw prints. Gillig walked onto the ledge behind the waterfall. Gillig was on a thin shelf of rock behind the waterfall. In front of him, the waterfall was fascinating and glowing from phosphorescence. The downpour of water and mist made it difficult to see around him, but Gillig could still see the lake through the waterfall. The space was narrow. Gillig walked to the sandy beach. Gillig looked all around and did not see Gloomer. It appeared his idea had worked. As long as he was covered in the foul-smelling sulphur, Gloomer would not be able to find him. It was time he sought out the exits of the cave. He recalled the dark stairs behind the gate, but even more interesting to him was the glow coming from behind the rock atop the jumble of rocks.
The rock behind the rock. And another rock.
Gillig was on a large sandy beach by the waterfall on the edge of the lake. Lying on its side horizontally, half buried in the sand, close to the water's edge, Gillig saw what at first he thought was a log, but at second glance it appeared to be a very large, smooth stalactite that had broken off the ceiling.
Examine the glow.
The phosphorescence glowed from the water with each ebb, dimly illuminating the cavern. Gillig stared in the direction of the lake. Somewhere within its depths the Gloomer lurked, waiting to catch his scent the moment his disguise washed off. He recalled the intriguing glow behind the rock on top of the jumbles and thought about how to get there while staying dry. Gillig was on the lake's large sandy beach by the waterfall.
Somewhere within its he recalled the intriguing glow behind the rock, top of the jumbles. Alright, so go to jumbles. Head toward go to waterfall. I think you have to go backwards.
Gillig turned sideways, then sidled behind the waterfall. Gillig was on a thin shelf of rock behind the waterfall. In front of him, the waterfall was fascinating and glowing from phosphorescence. The downpour of
The
water
other
and
side went
mist
up to
made
a
it
ledge that
difficult to see
continued
around
along
him,
the cavern
but
wall.
Gillig could still see the lake through the waterfall.
Go
The
to
space was narrow on
shallows.
either side of him. Gillig stepped up to the edge of the ledge, the shallows just below him. Gillig was on a ledge overlooking the lake. There was a visible island surrounded by lake in the distance. The ledge continued along the cavern wall, sloping down into the shallows, which spanned to the jumble of rocks. The other end of the ledge led to a thin shelf of rock behind the waterfall.
Go to jumble of rocks.
Gillig returned to the jumbles. Gillig jumped from the ledge, landing firmly in the shallows, then hopped onto the jumbles of rocks. The smelly yellow powder was completely washed
Oops.
off. Gillig was near the top of a jumble of rocks which ascended against the cavern wall. Before him, he saw a glowing waterfall that provided light to the rest of the large cavern. To the left of the waterfall, a rocky ledge which hugged the cavern wall. Beside it lay a small, shallow stretch of water leading to the jumble of rocks. To the other side of the waterfall lay a sandy beach where a large object stuck in the sand caught Gillig's eye. To the right of the beach and across an expanse of water lay a large, smooth and rocky shore with a large post by the water's edge that ran up to the top of the cavern and out of sight. Beyond the post, the rocky shore rose upward, sloping high to where an iron gate rested. Through its bars, Gillig could make out a set of steps carved from the rock ascending upward to what must have been the castle above. There was a small sandy island in the middle of the lake. Beyond it and towards the back of the cavern, Gillig could see a mass of slimy rocks covered in heaps of carrion and a dark tunnel opening in the wall high above the carrion mounds. Roof holes were scattered about the ceiling, and water dripped into the lake from the hole Gillig had fallen through. At the very top of the jumble of extremely large rocks, there was a large rock, no larger than himself, angled against the wall of the cave. He also noticed the strange glow coming from behind the rock. The maddened water rat was making right for Gillig.
Yeah, I kind of figured. So let me take some notes here. We have to make our way to the rock, but we can't touch water while we do it. So the idea here would be, and now I've got to go back behind the waterfall and roll in that crap again. This is a tough one. They're getting pretty ticky with their freaking puzzles here. There was a small island in the middle of the lake. To the beach. Jumped from the ledge, landing firmly in the shallows, then hopped into the jumble of rocks. We got to head back to the waterfall. To the left of the waterfall is a rocky ridge that hugged the cavern wall. Sadly, it was water or rocks. The other side, there was a waterfall, lay a sandy beach where a large object stuck. So I need to go back to there, and I need to go and go to waterfall.
Gillig climbed off the jumble of rocks, ran across the shallows, scampered up on the ledge, and sidled behind the waterfall. He recalled the jumbles that were just past the shallows that were next to the ledge by the waterfall. Gillig recalled he could easily go to the sulphur cave to keep Gloomer from finding him. Gillig was on a thin shelf of rock behind the waterfall. In front of him, the waterfall was fascinating and glowing from phosphorescence. The downpour of water and mist made it difficult to see around him, but Gillig could still see the lake through the waterfall. The space was narrow on either side of him. One side led out. Once he surveyed his surroundings, Gillig decided he was exactly where he wanted to go. Gillig was on a ledge behind the waterfall. He was facing the pouring fall. Straining, Gillig stepped into the opening. He recalled the jumbles that were just past the shallows that were next to the ledge by the waterfall. Gillig was in a tunnel with the water. Gillig walked into the darkness.
Roll
Straining to
around.
see. Gillig rolled around in the cave and felt himself being
Exit
covered in a
tunnel.
powder. Gillig found his way back into the
Exit
waterfall tunnel.
tunnel.
Gillig walked onto the ledge behind the waterfall. He recalled the jumbles that were just past
Yeah,
the
I know,
shallows
right?
that were next
Tough,
to the ledge
man.
by
Like,
the waterfall.
fortunately, I had to think
Gillig
too
was on
much
a
to
thin
really
shelf of rock behind the
talk a
waterfall.
lot.
In front of him,
Or
the
in that, I'm a
waterfall
little
was
under the weather as
fascinating
well, and I
and glowing from
apologize for that, for
phosphorescence.
sure.
The downpour of water and mist made it difficult to see around him.
It very much is
But
like I've got to
Gillig could
remember
still
where
see
things
the lake
are and
through the
crap.
waterfall. The space was narrow on either side of him.
He says
One
waterfall
side
a
led
lot
out
too.
to the sandy beach. The other side went up to a ledge that continued along the cavern wall before sloping down into the
Go to
shallows.
Sandy Beach.
Gloomer. Gillig walked to the sandy beach. Gillig was on a large sandy beach by the waterfall on the edge of the lake. Lying on its side horizontally, half buried in the
Look,
sand,
that's the
close to the water's
way.
edge, Gillig saw what at first the stalactite was very large and about twice as big as Gillig. It was laying on its side, nestled firmly in the sands of the beach. He recalled the jumbles that were just past the shallows that were next to the ledge by the waterfall. Gillig was on the lake's large sandy beach by the waterfall.
Look around.
Gillig was on a large sandy beach by the waterfall on the edge of the lake. Lying on its side horizontally, half buried in the sand, close to the water's edge, Gillig saw what at first he thought was a log, but at second glance it appeared to be a very large. The stalactite was very large and about twice as big as Gillig. It was laying on its side, nestled firmly in the sands of the beach. Since it was firmly nestled in the sand, he could not budge it if he wanted. He was at the stalactite, lying in the sand. Gillig was on the lake's large sandy beach by the waterfall.
So where do I go from here? Look around.
Gillig was on a large sandy beach by the waterfall on the edge of the lake. Lying on its side horizontally, half buried in the sand, close to the water's edge, Gillig saw what at first he thought was a log, but at second glance it appeared to be a very large, smooth stalactite that had broken off the stalactite was very large and about twice as big as Gillig. It was laying on its side, nestled firmly in the sands of the beach. Since it was firmly nestled in the sand, he could not budge it if he wanted to. Gillig was on the lake's large sandy beach by the waterfall.
Examine the sand.
Gillig studied the sand and saw it was a mixture of coarse and fine grains. Nothing peculiar about it. He recalled the jumbles that were just past the
Go to
shallows that were next to the
waterfall.
ledge by the water. Gillig turned sideways, then sidled behind the waterfall. Gillig was on a thin shelf of rock behind the waterfall. In front of him, the waterfall was
The
fascinating
downpour
and
water made
glowing
it
from
difficult seeing around him. The
phosphorescence.
space was narrow in
The
front of him.
downpour of water
One
and
side led to a
mist made
sandy
it
beach.
difficult
The
to
other
see
side
around
went
him,
to a
but
ledge that
Gillig could
continued.
still see the lake through the
Went to a
waterfall.
ledge that continued
The
along the
space was
cavern
narrow
wall
on
before
either
sloping
side of
down
him.
into the shallows.
One side led out to the sandy beach. The other side went up to a ledge that
Climb ledge.
continued along the cavern wall before sloping down into the shallows. Gillig walked onto the ledge beside the waterfall. The gap between the ledge and the jumble of rocks was so great that only a beast with powerful legs like a hare's could cross it in a single bound. Eyeing the gap, Gillig figured he could jump only half that distance. Gillig was on a ledge overlooking the lake. There was a visible island surrounded by lake in the distance. The ledge continued along the cavern wall, sloping down into the shallows, which spanned to the jumble of rocks. The other end of the ledge led to a thin shelf of rock behind the waterfall.
So I can't make the jump. There are audiobooks. Oh, for the Redwall series? Yeah, there probably are. Probably. This would be a good time for me to have a Spotify or an Audible sponsorship, but I don't have one of those, so missed opportunity for me. But clearly, so I want to look at the map here. The map of the place. Oh, wow, okay. I think this is a map of the place. See, that's actually kind of good use of art. So what we have here is so we have so this is like a big old puzzle here that we need to solve. So we need to get to the jumble of rocks. There's the waterfall. There's the sandy beach with the stalactite. That's what that is. There's the island with the bees. This is the slimy thing with the like, right? No, yeah. I mean, that's helpful. I don't know what this is. I don't recall what this is. So literally, like, there's a ledge here, and I'm trying to jump across, but I keep hitting the shallows. So I can't really climb the jumble of rocks. And unfortunately, like, there's water all over the place, so it's not like you can so swim to whatever this is. Hmm. I'm at a loss. I might even just call it. Oop. I don't know. I'm gonna have time to think about it. Waterfall, the gap between the ledge and the jumbled rocks was so great that the only beast who power like hairs. I mean, because if I'm looking at the map here, like, I don't think there's. I'm gonna try swim to island maybe. Swim to island.
Gillig returned to the island. The smelly yellow powder was completely washed off. Gillig was on a sandy island in the middle of a lake underneath Kotir Fortress. Located in plain view was a beehive. Gloomer raged towards the young otter, with claws at the ready and mouth agape.
Go south.
I just cannot do that command currently. I have no idea how to precisely determine directions with what I have. I may make a guess when I describe things, but it's not good enough for you to command me with. Gillig was on the island.
Go to
Gillig's eyes widened in
slimy
horror
rock.
as he witnessed. Gillig quickly swam over to the slimy shore. Gillig was on the carrion-strewn slimy rocks overlooking the lake. Covering the area were slimy-covered mounds of fish carrion. The maddened water rat was making right for Gillig.
Is that a rising or a setting sun? I don't know. I think it's like an exit. Oh no, that's the light that I'm trying to get to. They did mention that there was a light behind the jumble of rocks that I was trying to get to. but I don't know what that light is, and I guess that's what those little marks are supposed to represent. Manning water rat was making right for Gilead. Pick up carrion.
Gillig was running out of things to do with Gloomer so close, as he would surely be caught by the monstrous great rat. Gillig recalled he could easily go to the sulphur cave to keep Gloomer from finding him. Gillig was on the slimy rocks by the lake. The maddened water rat was making right for Gillig.
Go to waterfall.
Gillig swam to the waterfall and climbed onto the ledge behind it. He turned around to face the waterfall. Gillig set the large piece of pumice down, stretched his arms for a moment, and then picked the pumice up again.
Oh, there's
Gillig was on a
right.
thin shelf of rock behind the waterfall. In front of him, the waterfall was fascinating and glowing from phosphorescence. The downpour of water and mist made it difficult to see around him.
It's gotta have
but
to do
Gillig
something
could
with the
still
pumice.
see the lake through the waterfall. The space was narrow on either side of him.
So I gotta do something really quick. I gotta Google what the heck pumice is, because I have no idea. Pumice. Pumice, called pumicite, is a powdered dust form of volcanic rock consisting of high vascular textured volcanic glass, which may or may not contain crystals. What is pumice used for? Pumice is actually a type of volcanic rock. It is extremely lightweight but strong enough to be used as an abrasive. It's used in everything from dental products to scouring powders, water filtration systems, concrete, grout, soil, potting soil. Huh. Not sure how that helps, like, at all.
Side led out to the sandy beach. The other side went up to a ledge that continued along the cavern wall before sloping down into the shallows.
Go into
Gloomer
tunnel.
was nowhere to be seen. Gillig stepped into the opening.
Oh, no.
Gillig was in a tunnel with the
I get
waterfall
it.
behind him and darkness ahead.
Go into tunnel.
On the ground, he noted. Gillig walked into the darkness.
Roll around.
Gillig rolled around in the cave and felt
pumice
himself being covered in a powdery substance.
on floor.
He went to rub something, but realized he was not able at the present moment. He recalled the jumbles that were just past the shallows that were next to the ledge by the waterfall.
Pumice. Put powder on pumice.
He wanted to drop something, but realized he did not have it.
Yeah, leave tunnel.
Gillig found his way back into the waterfall tunnel.
Look at
He recalled the
inventory.
jumbles that were just past. Gillig checked his belongings and noted he was carrying a small, smooth rock, a pumice rock. Gillig noticed traces of yellow powder on the pumice. Gillig noticed he was covered in yellow powder. Gillig was in a tunnel behind the waterfall.
Alright, so let's go to jumble of rocks.
Gillig returned to the jumbles. Gillig jumped from the ledge, landing firmly in the shallows, then hopped onto the jumbles of rocks. The smelly yellow powder was completely washed off. Gillig recalled he could easily go to the sulphur cave to keep Gloomer from finding him. Gillig was near the top
Where was
of
a
the
glowing
jumble of
waterfall
rocks,
that
which
provided
ascended
cabins
against the
left
cavern
was
wall.
rocky ledge.
Before him, he saw a glowing waterfall that provided light to the rest of the large cavern. To the left
large
of the
object
waterfall,
stuck in the
a
sand.
rocky
That's the
ledge which hugged the
To
cavern
the right of the
wall.
beach and across
Beside
the
it
space of the
lay a
lake, a
small,
large smooth
shallow
rocky
stretch of
shore
water
with a
leading to the
large
jumble
post
of
by the water's
rocks.
edge that
To
ran
the
up to
other
the bottom
side
of
of
the
the
cavern and
waterfall
out
lay
to
a
the side
sandy
beyond
beach
the
where a
post.
large object stuck in the
The
sand
rocky
caught
shore
Gillig's
rose
eye.
upward,
To the right of the
sloping
beach
high
and
to where
across
the
an
iron
expanse
gate
of water
rested.
lay a large, smooth and rocky shore with a large post by the water's edge that ran up to the top of the cavern and out of sight.
So that's what that is.
Beyond the post, the rocky shore rose upward, sloping high to where an iron gate rested. Through its bars, Gillig could make out a set of steps carved from the rock ascending upward to what must have been the castle above. There was a small sandy island in the middle of the lake. Beyond it and towards the back of the cavern, Gillig could see a mass of slimy rocks covered in heaps of carrion, and a dark tunnel opening in the wall high above the carrion mounds. Roof holes were scattered about the ceiling, and water dripped into the lake from the hole Gillig had fallen through. At the very top of the jumble of extremely large rocks, there was a large rock, no larger than himself, angled against the wall of the cave. He also noticed the strange glow coming from behind the rock. The maddened water rat was making right for Gillig.
Use or rub pumice on self.
Gillig was running out of things to do with Gloomer so close, as he would surely be caught by the monstrous great rat. Gillig was at the top of the jumble of rocks. At the very top of the jumble of extremely large rocks, there was a large rock, no larger than himself, angled against the wall of the cave. He also noticed the strange glow coming from behind the rock.
Onto rock.
Once he surveyed his surroundings, Gillig decided he was exactly where he wanted to go. Gillig was at the top of the jumble of rocks. At the very top of the jumble of extremely large rocks, there was a large rock, no larger than himself, angled against the wall of the cave.
Oh,
He
behind
also
the rock.
noticed the strange Gillig wanted to go behind the large rock, but there was only enough room between it and the cavern wall for his paws. Gillig was at the top of the jumble of rocks. At the very top of the jumble of extremely large rocks, there Gillig was running out of things to do with Gloomer so close, as he would surely be caught by the monstrous great rat.
Go to
Gillig recalled
oh.
he could. Gillig returned to the rocky shore. Gloomer's nose twitched in the air. His head snapped in Gillig's direction and began moving toward his prey. Gillig was on the smooth rock shore, which gently sloped down into the lake. On the wall of the cavern was a stairway leading up into the Cotier castle. In front of the stairway was a large, rusty old iron gate that was shut tight. There was a very tall post with a ring the diameter of a rope bolted to it. The post was embedded in the ground and attached high overhead to a stalactite coming down from the ceiling. Making right for Gillig was an enraged Gloomer.
I don't know, guys. The large rock. The rocks. The rocks. There's so many rocks on the rocks. But with a lot of rocks. And more rocks. It's like that, what's that pony name? That Pinkie Pie's like sister or sibling there. I like rocks. Rocks. Go to Cotier Castle.
Gillig had a thought, but he had no idea how to do it. Gillig was on the smooth rock shore of the lake.
Go upstairs.
Gillig was running out of things to do with Gloomer so close, as he would
Look
surely be
around.
caught. Gillig was on the smooth rock shore, which gently sloped down into the lake. On the wall of the cavern was a stairway leading up into the Cotier castle. In front of the stairway was a large, rusty old iron gate that was shut tight. There was a very tall post with a ring the diameter of a rope bolted to it. The post was embedded in the ground and attached high overhead to a stalactite coming down from the ceiling. Gillig recalled he could easily go to the sulphur cave to keep Gloomer from finding him. He tried to take something, but he was not able to get it. Gillig was on the smooth rock shore of the lake. He wanted to look at something, but it was either not visible to him, or he could not find anything about it. Gillig was on the smooth rock shore of the lake.
Look at stairway.
Gillig saw the ascending stairs behind the gate as he ran past. Gloomer's nose twitched in the air. His head snapped in Gillig's direction and began moving toward his prey. Gillig was running out of things to do with Gloomer so close, as he would surely be caught by the monstrous great rat. Gillig recalled he could easily go to the sulphur cave to keep Gloomer from finding him. Gillig was on the smooth rock shore of the lake.
Look around.
Gillig was on the smooth rock shore, which gently sloped down into the lake.
There was a very tall post with a ring,
a stairway
the
leading
diameter
up
of a
into the
rope
Cotier
behind
castle.
to it.
In front of the stairway was a large, rusty old iron gate that was shut tight. There was a very tall post with a ring. Gillig was running out of things to do with Gloomer so close, as he would surely be caught by the monstrous great rat. The post had a large metal ring bolted just low enough for Gillig to reach. It was set firmly into the rock of the cavern floor and tied high above onto a stalactite from the cavern roof. It looked to be very securely designed, and not even a legion of field mice would be able to budge it. Gillig was on the smooth rock shore of the lake.
The post had a large metal ring bolted just
Charging straight for Gillig was the very angry Gloomer.
Look at metal ring.
Gillig observed the metal ring, which was securely bolted to the post. He noticed it was just large enough for his rope to fit through. Gillig recalled he could easily go to the sulphur cave to keep Gloomer from finding him. Gillig was on the smooth rock shore of the lake.
Oh yeah, I have a rope. Look at
Making right for Gillig, Gillig checked his belongings and noted he was carrying a small, smooth rock, a pumice rock. Gillig noticed traces of yellow powder on the pumice. He had an idea, but decided that would not accomplish anything. Gillig was running out of things to do with Gloomer so close, as he would surely be caught by the monstrous great rat.
I think I'm out of
Gillig
ideas.
was on the smooth rock shore of the lake.
Well, I'm out of ideas.
Charging
honestly.
straight for Gillig was the very angry Gloomer.
And I know that I'm supposed to be stealthy about it. The issue here is I'm not quite sure how I'm supposed to do that. I might have to call a mulligan here. But I guess I'll stop here for tonight because I'm getting tired. And like I'm tired of this runaround, man. And it literally is one. Run around, run around, run around, run around, run around. Resume games. Resume game. Open story file about. Okay, so it's more like a thing on that. Oh wow, we are. If this is any indication, we are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This will take 2 more sessions at least. So well, I'm not near the end, I guess. We'll probably have to do 2 more sessions of this. I may look for like a push in the right direction. I'm not getting much out of like what I'm supposed to do. I know I'm supposed to remain stealthy, but there's so much water around. I don't know if I can actually, make it from one thing to the other. Unless I'm like supposed to throw the rock at something and like wait a minute. Hold on. Go back here. Go to a waterfall.
Gillig swam over to the waterfall, trailing a glowing wake behind him that slowly returned to darkness. He climbed up onto the thin shelf of rock behind it. He recalled the jumbles that were just past the
Go
shallows
into
that were next to the
tunnel.
ledge
I'm
by
gonna
the
try one
water.
more thing.
Gillig stepped into the
Go
opening.
into tunnel.
Gillig was in a tunnel. Gillig walked into the darkness.
Roll.
He recalled the jumbles
Gillig
that were
remembers the
just
pumice
past
rock.
the
Thought about
shallows
how
that were
big and
next to the
porous it was.
ledge by the waterfall.
Surely it was solid enough
Gillig
to
set
maintain
the large
stability
piece
even
of
in
pumice
water.
down,
Perhaps there was
stretched
a
his
way he
arms
could
for a
use
moment,
it to
and then
cross the
picked the
shallows.
pumice up again. Gillig remembered the pumice rock and thought about how big and porous it was. Surely it was solid enough to maintain its stability even in water. Perhaps there was a way he could use it to cross the shallows. Straining to
So now
see,
you spell it out for me.
nothing
Well,
was
let's
visible.
roll
In the
around.
awful darkness, Gillig rolled around in the cave and felt himself being covered in a powdery substance.
This ooh, dark.
Gillig found his way back into the waterfall tunnel. He recalled the jumbles that were just
Stories for
past the
Bernie.
shallows that were next to the ledge by the
I don't do
waterfall.
politics on this
Gillig was in
channel
a tunnel
anymore.
with the waterfall
I've
behind
retired
him
from
and
that.
darkness ahead. On the ground, he noticed some distinct yellow paw prints.
Let's see. The tunnel.
Gillig walked onto the ledge behind the waterfall.
Row.
Gillig was on a thin shelf of rock behind the waterfall. In
What's it
front
called?
of him, the waterfall was fascinating and glowing
Look
from
at
phosphorescence.
inventory.
Gillig checked his belongings and noted he was carrying a small, smooth rock, a pumice rock. Gillig noticed traces of yellow powder on the pumice.
That pumice
Gillig noticed he was covered in yellow powder.
into
He
shallows.
recalled the jumbles that were just. Gillig is not near the shallows to throw the pumice into. Gillig was on a ledge behind the waterfall.
Shallows.
He was facing the pouring. Gillig wanted to enter some place, but he did not know
Go
where he
to
needed to
shallows.
go. He recalled the. Gillig stepped up to the edge of the ledge, the shallows just below him. Gillig was on a ledge overlooking the lake. There was a visible island surrounded by lake in the distance. The ledge continued along the cavern wall, sloping down into the shallows, which
into
span to the
shallows.
jumble of rocks. He threw the pumice rock into the shallows. It landed with a splash halfway between the shallows and jumble of rocks.
There we go. Jeez. I knew I had to do something with the pumice rock, but
In the
it
shallow
wasn't a
water,
good call. It was the
Gillig
game
could make
told
out
me
the top of
basically
the pumice rock sticking out.
threw me a bone while I was trying to fulfill one of my other thoughts. I thought I had to throw the pumice rock at like this other rock that was on the jumble of rocks. Jump to jumble of rocks.
Gillig attempted to make the rabbit-sized jump from the ledge to the jumble of rocks, but failed and fell into the water. Shaking the water from his fur, he knew he would need something else if he was going to make it across. The smelly yellow powder was completely washed off. Gillig was standing in shallow water right off the lake. It was between the waterfall and the jumble of rocks. Gillig swam to the
Enter
waterfall
tunnel.
and climbed on. Gillig stepped into the
Enter
opening.
tunnel.
Now that the pumice rock, Gillig walked into
Roll
the darkness.
around.
Gillig rolled
Exit
around in the cave
tunnel.
and felt himself being. Gillig found
Exit
his way back into the
tunnel.
waterfall tunnel. Gillig was in it. Gillig walked onto the ledge behind the waterfall. The pumice rock was just out of stepping distance from
Jump
Gillig. Surely there was
to
another way he could get to it. Gillig was on a thin. Gillig wanted to jump on the pumice rock, but it was not anywhere close by. Gillig was on a ledge behind the waterfall.
Should have
He was
actually
facing the pouring fall, straining to see through the glows in the dense
Pumice Rock was
mists.
7 is was on a thin shelf of rock by the waterfall. Go to shallows.
Gillig stepped up to the edge of the ledge, the shallows just below him. Gillig was on a ledge overlooking the lake. There was a visible island surrounded by
Jump
lake in
to
the distance.
Pumice
The ledge
Rock.
continued with a mighty leap. He jumped to the pumice rock in the middle of the shallows. He was standing on the pumice in the middle of the shallows between the waterfall ledge and the jumble of rocks.
Jump to jumble of rocks.
He jumped from the pumice rock in the shallows onto the jumble of rocks. Next to the lake, a jumble of rocks ascended against the cavern wall, with Gillig near the bottom. Following the cavern wall was a shallow area of water that led to the ledge by the waterfall.
Rocks. Jumble rocks. Climb. Jumble of rocks.
Gillig climbed the rock jumble and reached its peak. Gillig was near the top of a jumble of rocks which ascended against the cavern wall. Before him, he saw a glowing waterfall that provided light to the rest of the large cavern. To the left of the waterfall, a rocky ledge which hugged the cavern wall. Beside it lay a small, shallow stretch of water leading to the jumble of rocks. To the other side of the waterfall lay a sandy beach where a large object stuck in the sand caught Gillig's eye. To the right of the beach and across an expanse of water lay a large, smooth and rocky shore with a large post by the water's edge that ran up to the top of the cavern and out of sight. Gillig climbed up onto the large rock and saw the faint glow from behind the rock. Within his mind, a badger lord became visible. He smiled as he spoke with the softness of a winter's night, declaring that you have earned the achievement title of King of the Hill. Gillig was at the top of the jumble of rocks. At the very top of the jumble of extremely large rocks, there was a large rock, no larger than himself, angled against the wall of the cave. He also noticed the strange glow coming from behind the rock.
Look behind the rock.
Gillig closely examined the rock, finding it to be nothing but a smooth stone. He tucked it away, disappointed it had not been flint. If it were, he could have used it to strike a fire for his torch. Gillig was at the top of the jumble of rocks. At the very top of the jumble of extremely large rocks, there was a large rock, no larger than himself, angled against the wall of the cave. He also noticed the strange glow coming from...
There we go. Push them.
He pushed the rock away, and it tumbled into the jumbles, exposing a small opening in the cavern wall.
Gillig looked down to see he had uncovered.
He
There
had
he goes.
uncovered a
Jeez.
small tunnel.
You fell asleep on me,
A
man.
strange warm glow poured out from it onto the jumbled rocks below his paws.
It said
He
jumble.
bent low to peer inside at what he had uncovered. Within his mind, a badger lord became visible. He smiled as he spoke with the softness of a winter's night, declaring that you have earned the achievement title of Amateur Scout.
That was the last game. That's not this game. That was the last game. Anyways, we finished chapter 3. Hooray! Wait that Wait that Wait that All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching tonight. I know kind of drags a little bit sometimes. He's very repetitive. He will make his anchor statements as much as he wants to. Propane and propane accessory with prosperous stones in rocks, with prosperous rocks and jumbled rocks and so many rocks. The game, thought I tossed the mouse in frustration. I was getting there a few times. Like I'm like, yes, I know I'm doing things wrong. It's kind of embarrassing. Like particularly this the third chapter was tough. Like I kind of get what they were going for now. Like in the long of the run, like you're basically running from place to place while the Gloomer's chasing you. But at the end of the day, when I think about like what happened at the end of that chapter, or what basically came of it, we really didn't use much of that territory. There was a lot of territory, but it's like, well, the Gloomer's chasing you. You move this way, that way, that way. Oh, you finally escaped to the waterfall, and then you roll it. You're basically at that point. You should have just been able to roll around in that stuff. Take the porous rock, throw the porous rock into the shallows. And when I say it like that, it's like it takes me like 10 minutes, or like not even 10 minutes, like a minute to describe the events of chapter 3. But it literally took me, I think, an hour and a half to stumble about the chapter. So it's kind of like I got to get good, but it's like I don't know what the game's trying to tell me sometimes until it blurts it out. It's like, you dummy. Did you try throwing the porous rock into the shallows? No, I didn't know how big this rock was. I have no frame of reference. Come on now. Anyways, thank you guys very much for watching. We'll continue our thing in chapter 4 next week. Actually, no, we will not. Maybe. I don't think no, I won't be here next week. So you guys get a week off. We will be back on the 13th. As long as I get better, and I think I am getting better. I think I'm on the ending side of this, whatever this is, because I've been kind of under the weather since Monday, and it got pretty bad up until like Tuesday, and now it's like kind of dying down. So hopefully I could shake this crud. But I should be going to Furthermore this upcoming Friday. So so it won't be here then, but we will be back on the 13th for playing more Gloomer, the gloomy Gloomer, the gloomiest of gloomy rock-based text games. Anyways, have a good night, guys.